Hello, welcome everybody to my second Facebook Live video. And I'm really excited to do another Facebook video for you. My name is Sandra Poppema from HippoLogic and my website is clickertraining.ca. In clicker training, I often see that horse owners start enthusiastically a new training project and they get demotivated after a while. And they get stuck in a rut. In all those years that I have been teaching riding lessons and horse training clinics, I found three main causes for people to get demotivated in training. In my first video, I talked about intrinsic motivation and how that works, how it comes and goes in waves, and that if you are getting a little bit demotivated, that you don't have to do anything because it will go up by itself. The second reason why trainers get demotivated is that they get stuck in because they don't know what to do next. They don't know what their next step in training will be. So they get stuck and they get demotivated. I will talk about how to tackle that problem in another video. In this video, I want to talk about our inner voice and how often we are the ones that demotivate ourselves. We all have an inner voice to protect us and to guide us, but often our inner voice is also our biggest inner critic. We think the same things over and over again, and when we tell ourselves the same thing over and over again, we tend to believe them. Well, the first thing to remember is that our inner voice is just a thought and you don't have to believe it. And then the second thing is, because it is a thought, you can change it. You can change your thoughts. Equestrians often become demotivated because we use the words always and never a lot. For example, they tell themselves, I will never become a good rider, or my horse always needs more than an hour to get trailer loaded. And sometimes they use it to describe their horse, like my horse always bolts in canter, or my horse never trailer loads quickly and it always takes more than an hour. And when you use the words always and never, your sentence sounds more like a fact. And then your brain thinks, well, I don't have anything, I cannot do anything to change it because this is a fact. Something happens if you change your wording. You can, for example, change never to I choose not to, and it will already sound very differently. Your brain will still not look for a solution because you have chosen not to change anything, and that's okay too. Or maybe you are triggered now to change something because you realize that this is not what you actually want or looking for. So the sentence, I will never become a good rider, will sound like, I choose not to become a good rider. Play with the words and see how you feel about it. And if that's what you want, that's okay. And you can just stop frustrating yourself and stop improving. If you say, I choose not to become a good rider out loud, you can ask yourself, is that really true? No, most of us want to become good riders. And if that's true, you're ready for the next step. You can also choose your words and focus on what you do want. Example, you can change the sentence, I choose to become a better rider each day, and I will improve my riding little by little. Now you have changed your mind from I will never become a good rider to I will become a good rider each day. And if you get stuck in the sentence, I will never become a rider, you don't give yourself permission to improve or to keep track of your progress. Because if you are focused on your progress, you might become a good rider, and that's not what your brain wants. Because if your inner critic tells you that you will never become a good rider, your brain will look for evidence that support this fact, which is just a thought. So you can rephrase this thought, I will never become a good rider, and change it into, I will become a better rider each day. And if you rephrase it in that way, you give yourself permission to improve. And you also give yourself permission to keep track of your progress, which can be really motivating. So if you start doing this, after a while you recognize the pattern that you indeed improved your riding skills over time. You can also, of course, just say, I choose not to become a good rider, and that's okay too. Then you don't have to improve, and you give yourself permission not to improve and just enjoy your riding skills as they are now. But now it's stated as a choice instead of a fact, and that's a big difference, because now you have taken responsibility for the choice you made. If you say, I will never become a good rider, you take out the possibility that you do have a choice in the matter and that you can influence it. And the same is true for the word always. I always need over an hour to trailer load my horse. Your brain doesn't want to be wrong, and it will find ways to fulfill this prophecy. Try to help people that have trouble loading their horse, and you will know what I'm talking about. Only if they are convinced 100% that you will fail, they will let you try. I had that once, and when I managed to load their horse within 10 minutes, the owner wasn't the slightest thankful or happy. Her focus was to get out of my sight as soon as possible, because her inner critic was just not ready to change her thoughts about how skilled her horse was at trailer loading. You can rephrase always with the word sometimes, and suddenly you give yourself permission to load your horse within an hour. Sometimes I need an hour to load my horse. Can you imagine that it is really important to become aware of what you're telling yourself and how you phrase it? Because what you tell yourself over and over again will feel like a fact. You will repeat the same thing over and over again until you believe it. And then when you get used to that thought, you don't want to get rid of it anymore. So can you imagine what will happen to your life if all your thoughts are supporting thoughts? Another thing to consider when you become aware of your inner voice, ask yourself if you would like somebody else to speak in the way that you speak to yourself. I've said many times to myself, you will never become a good rider. But I cannot imagine saying the same thing to somebody else. And I would not allow a friend of mine to speak to me in this way. But we do allow our inner voice to speak to us like that. Well, if I tell myself that I will never become a good rider, it is my way to prevent failure. Because if I don't give myself permission to try, I cannot fail. That brings me to the word failure. I don't believe in failure. I believe failure is experience. And without experience, you will never grow. So if I use the word experience, this gives me the feeling of permission to get more experience and become better at what it is that I do. And there are many phrases and words that we can use to turn our inner critic into an inner supporter. And I can talk to you about this for hours. I just want to finish with two other powerful words that can demotivate you, and that are the words faults and mistakes. In training or riding, it has no value to look whose fault something is, because is it your horse's fault that he doesn't want to go in the trailer, or is it your fault? It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you are focused on solutions. So how can you motivate your horse in a positive way that he wants to go into that trailer voluntarily and without stress? That is your goal, right? So let's not dwell on whose fault it is that it takes hours to load your horse. It doesn't help you find a solution to your problem, which is of course not a problem. I would call it a challenge. And the other word that people use a lot is the word mistake. And I would advise you to rephrase mistakes and change it for points of learning. So if you want to challenge yourself this week, focus on becoming aware of what your inner voice is telling you and the way it phrases things, and write it down. And then ask yourself, does your inner voice use constructive or destructive language? And can you change destructive language and demotivating words into constructive and supporting words? If you need help rephrasing your thoughts, just ask. I can help you with suggestions to change demotivating words and phrases. And if you have already an inner supporter, let me know which phrases and words you changed and what's your favorite motto. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Sandra Poppema from HippoLogic, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!